The recent update shook up the meta a little bit to widen it, probably wider than we've had in a very long time. With so many different options for the close range meta, we're going to actually be giving you 12 different loadouts today to give you kind of the heads up on some of the things you should be trying out. The TTK spreadsheet was also updated, so it includes all the information as of May 7th when they did rebalance a ton of stuff. On top of that, the spreadsheet linked near the top of the description also has this spreadsheet, which a lot of you guys were asking for, so you can kind of look at different TTKs and various weapons at your own leisure. So for the close range TTK, you can see pretty much there's so many options below 616 TTK. Once you get beyond that, there are some ones that you can make an argument for, whether they have better movement or whatever the case is, or maybe they have more range or whatever the case is. But the AK-74 getting the nerf brought this in line to where it should be, and that also adds more weapons into the sniper support category, because there's a bunch of rifles with around 40 meters range that have 650-ish TTKs that can be combined with the HDR. It didn't only open the close range meta, it opened up the sniper support meta, and then we got to tune a little bit more on the long range meta before it's like where it needs to be. But overall, huge steps in the right direction. There's a lot of weapons on here, and there's even some that I didn't include that definitely could fit into this. But at a certain point, the list just gets too long, and that's kind of a good problem to have. You have some close range TTKs, but probably more important are these 40 meter range TTKs. As you can see, they kind of fall in line right here. And the reason why this is important is because this is where the vast majority of your gunfights are within. Obviously, there's going to be instances where you challenge people at 75 meters or a sniper at 100 meters, and that's where the last range will be important. But there's a lot of times where a gun is perfectly serviceable within the shorter ranges or mid ranges, and it's good enough as is. And then because of the HDR, if you run into a lot of those, maybe you'll shift towards something that can kill faster at further ranges or has less recoil. So it's just another factor. I have them sorted that way, but there's so many weapons that you can actually slot in here, like I said, that aren't already included on this long list of long range options. Then when we get to the longest range TTKs, you can see these ones in green are kind of the only ones that you'll lean towards if you can control the recoil. So we got a lot of loadouts to go through. We'll go ahead and start off with the XMG and the Kompakt. Keeping in mind that a lot of these long range options, you can kind of just swap through as your preference. Same thing with the close range. Just because I'm covering this one in the 6th loadout doesn't mean this is the 6th best XMG. I just thought these are some good loadouts to try out, and these are all relatively competitive within the meta, and some you'll prefer over others. Pretty straightforward loadout. If you do want more attachments with 8 attachment loadouts, for long range options, you're solving for bullet velocity and recoil, so those are the main 2 options you put on there. Everything else would just be extra attachments that you can use for however you want. Same thing with the close range, pretty straightforward builds for a lot of these SMGs. Maybe you want to stock, get a little bit different movement options there, or maybe you want a little more bullet velocity since some can suck in that area. Those are the extra attachments you'd go with. And then I know some people are gassing up the Strelok for ADS speed with the ADS accuracy. I'm not a fan, but go for it if that's something you prefer. Pretty straightforward. It's going to be a low recoil option. Doesn't move too much. Obviously, in a real gunfight, target's going to be moving and stuff like that, so tracking becomes a little bit different. But overall, pretty straightforward on the XMG, and then the fast firing Kompakt. It will delete, but you'll run out of bullets pretty quick as well. And it's mainly going to be in that 10 to 15-ish meters. 20 meters, it gets a little bit harder. You're not really challenging too many with 25 meters with an SMG, even though some are better than others. Next up, HDR, which is still the sniper meta because it can one-shot, even though it got nerfed multiple ways. This is where the nerfs need to stop on this gun. It's gone as far as it needs to. It has way more flinch. Just leave it as is, buff a bunch of other rifles, and buff a bunch of other sniper rifles so that we can have more options in the meta. Pretty straightforward build for it. And then we also have the AK, which, like I said, you could slot in about 4 or 5 different guns here based off the other TTK spreadsheet for that close range with around a 40 meter drop off. There's tons of rifles that fit into this category, but I think the AK is still going to be pretty good. I think some of the other ones have faster fire rate, a little bit better handling or something like that. So you can kind of pick and choose which one you gravitate towards. Like I said, the nerf to this opened up the door on so many other options. And sniper's nothing crazy. You go ahead and snipe and you're good to go. And then we got the AK, which Maybe some have better iron sights. Maybe some have better recoil, better fire rate. There's a lot of different options there. Next up, DMR. This is an 8 attachment. I thought I'd include this just so you guys have something to work with. But realistically, on the muzzle, you can use compensator, muzzle brake, or ported. Pretty good DMR build that still kills pretty quick up to that first damage drop off. After that, it gets a little bit wonky. And then we got the Grekhova, which you can combine with any 8 attachment build. It doesn't necessarily have to be the DMR in this case. And this was that weird 80s hipfire build that you can kind of see here. It's kind of how people build it. Like it. I'm not a fan. I think I wish it had a bigger magazine, to be honest. But here's the DMR. Like I said, it's going to be great at this 50-meter target. And then the other one obviously is a firing range. So this target's not going to move. But what will end up happening, those shots get a little bit harder at that range for all guns. And the extra shots change the effective TTK pretty dramatically. So there's kind of how that goes. And then the Grekhova, even if you're pretty accurate, you're still going to run out of bullets. It's just kind of how it works. So this is good for that one-on-one, and then you get a real SMG. Then we have the Grau, built out without the monolithic because that's causing frame issues. It'll drop a ton of frames. I'm not sure if on console, but at least on PC. And this allows it to be pretty accurate. Straightforward build there. And the C9, I don't know why it says Cypher, but there's the build out. You could always swap out the stock for ergonomic or whatever the case is, and then you're good to go. So you got a few different options there. Like I said, if you want more attachments, you just build towards what you're trying to solve for on the gun. But generally 5 attachments is more than enough on the vast majority of guns. So the straightforward SWAT, relatively easy to use. I wish it wasn't as obtrusive. They'll probably have a pay-to-win bundle that removes this rear sight that clears it up. But end of the day, it's pretty good if you just want iron sights. I think on Rebirth, this one probably feels really good relative to BR because sometimes the further ranges, it can be hard to see that target. And, you know, even harder to hit them with just the iron sights. And then overall, C9, straightforward gun. After the buff, it's just more consistent. People were loving it before, they're going to love it now. More reliable TTK. And then next up, the Krig. This is the one that got the recoil buff, the headshot damage buff, the overall damage buff. So overall, all around pretty good. The recoil is low enough where you can actually go with monolithic suppressor without having to rock 8 attachments to solve for recoil. You could go still the compensator, and even with the compensator, you're still going to have close to 1200 bullet velocity, which is pretty solid. So again, that one's going to come down to preference, and then we get a standard Saug build. And they've made a lot of the attachments pretty straightforward from gun to gun. Obviously, if you just play for a little bit, you'll kind of figure out which guns you want to use and be able to control and those types of things. It's just going to depend on preference on a lot of things, but you don't have to like level up 10 guns to get the one like loadout that we had in MW2 and part of MW3 in terms of being able to mix and match attachments. That systems are kind of gone, other than the optic, which there's plenty of optics you could just get from regular leveling. Then it brings us to the AMAX, keeping in mind that although I'm showing these last, doesn't mean that these are the absolute best meta compared to the other ones. It's just there's going to be a lot of give and take depending on your play style, skill, mode you play. There's a lot of variables, and overall these are some of the best options and arguably the best options, but you can kind of mix and match. Again, 5 attachment AMAX, and then the Ladra, which is also a lot like the Kompakt, just a little bit different. A little bit fun shake up, and hopefully they continue to do this where they keep adding new guns to the meta where they're very good contenders, maybe even a little broken when they first come out, and then they get a little bit of a nerf so that we have the baseline meta, a little bit of a spike for a new gun, and so we can continue to mix it up as time goes on. Overall, I am a fan of that, just to be able to keep as many guns as the meta as possible, have fun. Let me know what you guys are enjoying after the update. There's been a lot of changes. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.